Final score, 4-0 in Denver, Colorado. For more on this one, we welcome into the show our good friend and colleague, Mauricio Pedrosa. Mau, I don't want to lead the witness. Your thoughts on what we just watched from the Mexican national team?
Happy to be here with you guys and not surprised at all. This is expected. If you compare the players, the quality, the teams that they play for at a club level, the managers, this is an expected result. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be concerned for the lack of intensity, even the lack of concentration that some players showed in that first half, which was catastrophic. I feel that many of us thought of that Copa America when Chile beat Mexico 7-0. Yeah, that was a quarterfinal game and not a test play, not a friendly match, but still, the difference, the gap between the two teams was absolutely alarming. But the fact that we're not surprised maybe is the worst part of it. And I mean, no one is safe here. No player, not even the manager, not even Jimmy Lozano. And I know some of the decisions and some of the players that we saw on the field tonight, maybe they were not his first choice. He was instructed by the executives of the Mexican Soccer Federation that a change was needed. Fine. You change players when you have quality players that deserve and earn a chance. Who of these new players really earned their spot or starting 11 at an important game against Uruguay, coached by Marcelo Bielsa? El Memote? Tala? What did he do to wear the national team jersey? So, I mean, with all this context, we saw it coming. Whoever didn't see it coming does not know the reality of the Mexican national team. Maybe the worst part of it all is that there's no light at the end of the tunnel because even the players that were supposed to be regular starters aren't really that much better than the ones that played tonight.
Herc?
All right, where do we start here? Here's a problem. It was the second team for Mexico, as second team as you can get from Mexico. Yes, absolutely. But it was also the second team for Uruguay. There was 4 starters, if you will, maybe for Uruguay. There was only 14 field players for Uruguay. Marcelo Bielsa left his European players resting. You had players, some who play in Europe, yes. Pelestri plays at Granada, even though he's owned by United. You had some players playing in Mexico, a player playing in Brazil. This was a solid Uruguayan team, but by no means the A team that we saw plaster Argentina in Argentina. So it could have gone a lot worse had it been the A team. Why are we in this position to begin with? Why is it in a preparation year for the World Cup, you've got a tournament in Copa America, it should be your dry run for the World Cup, and you're experimenting? I can't tell you how many times we've sat at the rooftops asking for Santi Jimenez, asking for Luis Malagon, and finally, there's no Memo Ochoa or Henry Martin, so these guys can play, and you're going to just say Uruguay doesn't matter? Like if it's not important to have these games, like it's so easy to schedule these friendlies. You're not in World Cup qualifying. You're not going to get regular games. So when you get these games, you have to do something with it. And they didn't. And what can you say about the play on the field? Mal, you're right. This tells us a lot about this Mexican national team, this player pool. When you look at this player pool, there's an evident lack of pace, intensity, conviction. Because when you look at the Uruguayans, it doesn't matter if they're second or third string players. When they go into a 50-50 ball, boom, they go into it because it's your leg or my leg, and it's damn sure not going to be my leg. That's how they're thinking about this. And you can see how afraid the Mexican players were. And what is worse here, Jimmy Lozano, you say, didn't pick the team? Are you leading me to believe that these players were imposed and he's a puppet on the string for these executives? If that is the case, that is worse.
Yeah. Go on, Mal, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, whoever doesn't see that, then I don't know what kind of more context they need of what's going on here. This is clearly Duilio Davino. This is clearly La Bomba Rodriguez, the commissioner of the Mexican Soccer Federation, imposing their will on Jaime Lozano, and that's just because Javier Aguirre asked for some time before making the decision if he's going to join as an advisor. I don't even think that Javier Aguirre has what it takes to change this very negative spiral that the national team is involved in right now. To everything that Herc said, I will add one more thing, that it was really sad to see. A lot of those players looked afraid, like they didn't belong there. If you're going to play at this level, you at least got to show that you belong there. And there were some players on that field that were afraid to face the looks of a Betancourt, Darwin Nunez, Jimenez, and this just speaks volumes of what's going on right now with the Mexican national team.
I was trying to think of a word strong enough, right, to describe what we just saw. And humiliation comes to mind. But there ought to be a word beyond humiliation when you're getting olayed by your own fans in effectively a home game 2 weeks before a tournament. That's like a new level of humiliation. Your own fans effectively, ironically booing you for Mexico. And we're going to pick on Jimmy Lozano, and I'm sure he's going to get a lot of heat for this. But some of the individual performances, guys, here, at least from the players that matter, players you think might have a significant role in Copa America, were really disappointing. Outside of maybe Piojo Alvarado, and really there's that one moment where he creates something out of nothing with the shot off the crossbar. The other guys, Orbelin, who we've been asking to see in the midfield, where was his impact? Chino Huerta, who's supposed to be one of the next Mexican hopes to go to Europe, looked nowhere on that level. Arteaga, who just came back from Europe, looked nowhere on that level. The right side for Uruguay in this game, I mean, it was a free pass and a speed pass is that. You look around at the rest of that 11, Edson Alvarez, he's the captain. He's the guy playing in the Premier League. He's the guy that gave up the terrible pass on the second goal and then looked like a ghost after the third goal. So the guys that matter in this line, I'm sure we can pick on Rangel. He shouldn't have been in here, right? I mean, he's got, 23 First Division appearances, and we're putting him in a game against Uruguay. I don't know, Mal, what I'm more upset with Jimmy Lozano here. The lineup, because, the players let us down. That's not the first time it's happened. The lineup here feels like a missed opportunity because of some of the guys who did play. But then I got to say this, At halftime, when you're down 3-0, and Herc mentioned it, there was like 4 dudes on the Uruguayan bench. There's 10 freaking players on the Mexican bench. Make a change. He didn't do anything at halftime. He, again, waited, sat around, let the 4th goal fall, and then finally in minute 55, brings on some changes. This is who Jimmy Lozano is as a manager. You say the players are scared. Sometimes now I feel like he's scared. He's scared to make the change. Maybe it's a lack of experience, but I don't see him getting that experience in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, here's the question. Who needs more experience at this moment, the players or the manager, right? I heard a comment by someone saying when Jimmy Lozano turned to talk to his assistant, I think it was Cristian Martinoli in Mexican TV who said maybe he should turn to Marcelo Bielsa.
Yes.
And ask him a question, right? That's how bad it got. So it is. I mean, we can go on and on and on. That's how bad it was. But to me, the big picture, right? Big picture. This is a wasted opportunity. If Santi Jimenez was sitting on a bench and was good to go for 10 minutes, was he good to go for 45 minutes? If we made such a big deal about who's going to be the goalkeeper in Copa America and maybe in the 2026 World Cup, why are you not playing Angel Malagón in this game? I know they're playing Brazil next, but it's not like you have this kind of games regularly, every international break, so make the best of it. And at this point, I'm very concerned with the fact that Jimmy Lozano is showing his true colors in terms of his inexperience. Edson Alvarez has been profoundly criticized over the past 90 minutes, and rightfully so for his performance. Now, the things that Jimmy Lozano is asking from Edson Alvarez is like asking an Italian chef to make some tacos for you. Edson Alvarez is not the player that you're going to give him the ball and start creating and the build-up. He's a very good defender, but that's not the way he plays at West Ham United. And the fact that Jimmy Lozano insists that every single attack starts with Edson Alvarez, that puts the whole team in a very, very dangerous situation. And those mistakes were converted into goals. So the fact that Jimmy Lozano insists in things like that leads me to believe that it is time now for either Javier Aguirre to come and take the team or Duilio Davino or whoever is in charge to realize that Jimmy Lozano maybe is not the guy for the next 2 years leading this team.
Hey, Herc, real quickly here. If you were in charge of FMF, would you make a change before the tournament?
I think they already did. There's no way you bring on Javier Aguirre as an advisor to not be ready to pull the trigger. Now, I apologize for interrupting you, Mao, where I thought you were going with this because I don't know where you saw it, but I was watching the transmission with Osvaldo Sanchez on TUDN.
Here in the U.S., yeah.
Here in the U.S., and they looked over while Jimmy Lozano is getting beat up, while the Mexican national team is getting beat up. He looks over to his assistant coach, Ryota Nishimura, and he says, it's not like you're asking an experienced assistant coach who's been there, done that in this moment, what do you think we should do? He's asking Ryota Nishimura.
Oh, okay.
And Ryota Nishimura is a guy that Jimmy Lozano met in a foreign exchange coaching program with little to no experience himself. So I go back to what you just mentioned. I think the change has already been made. I think this whole Javier Aguirre on as an advisor is a break in case it hits the fan. I think we're getting close. And guess what? Javier is here. Javier, just take over for this tournament. Just do it for this tournament, so to go. And Javier right now is no longer with Mallorca. I think sooner rather than later, we're going to break that glass.
Okay, so at one point, Marcelo Bielsa was linked to the Mexican job, okay, which makes his comments even more interesting. Now, these comments are not from postgame, obviously. This is pregame. Maybe he's singing a very different tune about Mexico having just beat them 4-0 in Denver, Colorado. But here's what Bielsa had to say about El Tri and the state of the Mexican national team right now. Gerardo Martino's process, sir, seemed valuable to me. But under this new process, with this new twist that has been given for Copa America, it seems to me that they have enough players today to imagine a squad that can go toe-to-toe with anyone. This seems like a good time for a get lost. Mal, what do you think of Bielsa's comments? And maybe beyond that, Mexico's chances now at Copa America coming off this massive L.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of things that make me and Herc different. One of those is my love for Marcelo Bielsa. And I know Herc is not the biggest fan of Marcelo Bielsa.
Show me trophies, baby.
In this case, I would say he's being smart. He's being politically correct. He was not going to be, I mean, there was no point for Marcelo Bielsa in being honest and saying, listen, this team is crap, right?
Yeah.
They're just not
Listen,
any
I got
good.
14 field players and we're going to beat them
really
4-0. Right.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think that says more than the words he expressed during that press conference. I think Marcelo Bielsa was just being a good dude and not trying to expose maybe what he already knew, that he was gonna face a team with a lot of vulnerabilities, with a lot of weaknesses, and with a lot of weak spots, and that he was ready to explode those. But I mean, to your second part of the question, even from the moment the Copa America draw was known, I think we all had our doubts, right? Is Mexico going to really advance in this group? I'm not sure. And now I have even more doubts than 6 months ago, because you're talking about teams like Ecuador, who actually, I mean, I think they represented themselves really well during the World Cup. We all know what Venezuela has been doing recently, and Jamaica is a team that always gives Mexico a lot of headaches. So at this moment, Seth, if you ask me, how confident are you that Mexico is going to advance in this group? Not confident at all. I think Mexico can win all of those games, but at the same time, I feel that Mexico has a chance to lose all of those 3 games.
We overreacting, Herc?
I agree with Mao. I think he's being politically correct. You have to go back and do your homework. He was almost going to be part of this Mexican national team program. Jesus Martinez, the owner of Grupo Pachuca, the Pachuca owner and León ownership group, he had him on a platter for the Mexican Federation, and they went a different route. They went with Diego Coca. They pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and went a complete 180 of where they were going to go. So why would Marcelo Bielsa burn a bridge here? I agree with Mao. He's being politically correct. Now, this came out, the group. We were in Columbus. We were in Columbus, and I immediately said, this isn't that easy. It's not that easy. Ecuador is a very young, very well-coached team. The ex-Qatar coach, the Spanish coach, Felix Sanchez, he is there now. This is the same Qatar team that started with negative points to kick off the World Cup qualifying campaign. They are no longer with negative points. They're actually well on their way to joining the World Cup. They've given this Uruguay team that leads World Cup qualifying its only loss. It wasn't Brazil. It wasn't Argentina, who they smacked around in Argentina. It was this Ecuador team, 2-1. So this team could give anybody fits. Yes, the Mexican national team fits. And yeah, the talent that Venezuela has up top, they can give anybody in Copa America fits. And Jamaica is an enigma. I never know what to expect from my Jamaicans. But they are. They're an enigma. Mal said it right. This team could win the group. I could see that. They could also lose the group and they're out.
When the group dropped, I remember thinking, there's a chance they go out. There's like a 10 to 20% chance. Maybe it's being a prisoner of the moment, but right now, based off this performance that we just saw, it feels way more like 40 or 50% that Mexico will be going home in the group phase of the Copa America, of essentially a home Copa America, which the Federation and everybody else seems to be kind of okay with what they're telling us via the preparation and the roster for this. The Copa America here really seems to be taking kind of a back seat for Mexico.
These weren't the starters, though, Seb. These weren't you and Mao are getting
Santi
a little.
Jimenez was just on his honeymoon. I get it. There were some guys who were just coming from
Both of you
CONCACAF
guys,
champions.
I understand. Listen, I'm with you guys. You got to hammer him here, but also these weren't the starters. And Mao.
Hey, Edson's a starter.
Okay, yeah, but he's an eagle surrounded by chickens. That's what's going on here. Okay, and he had a bad day because he's surrounded with players who had a bad day, who didn't want the ball, who were scared out of their minds, out of their wits. Mal's not going to let me lie here. And Seb, you're not going to let me lie here. How many times have you seen an underwhelming Mexico team play Brazil and play lights out? How many times have we seen that? Can you tell me that this Brazilian team, I know the roster looks very, very loaded, especially up front.
This Mexico can't go toe-to-toe with anybody.
Hold on. That's what we've said about the Mexicos of the past when it comes to Brazil. All I'm saying is, for whatever reason, a team that lets them play when it's not gritty, when it's not transition, when it's not in your face.
You're living on the past with that, man. This Mexico is
fine.
incapable of doing that.
We could say the same thing about Brazil. We could say the same thing about Brazil. All I'm trying to tell you is this wasn't
Mexico can't go to toe-to-toe with anybody, and I tell you what, they're not physically gifted enough to even be pragmatic against somebody and kick them. I mean, there was a moment in the game today, they should have just started kicking Uruguay. They couldn't catch the Uruguay players to kick them.
Anybody want to tell me what the score was last time Brazil played Mexico and Texas?
Did it matter?
I'm just asking. Does this one matter? I'm asking.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks from a major tournament.
No,
you were
but
2 weeks from a major tournament back then as well. Copa America, that you lost 7-0 against Chile. Come on, Seb. All I'm saying is, look, there's a few things here.
Here's the biggest difference. Here's the biggest difference and why I cannot agree with you that even though Mexico, whenever they have played Brazil, sometimes, right, they would play really well, out of their minds, and beat Brazil or get a good result against Brazil. Good. That has happened. But previous generations, those were generations with way better quality of play than what we have right now.
The Brazilian or the Mexican?
You knew there were good players at the time by the Mexicans. This is probably the weakest generation we've seen of a Mexican national team. In the past,
so why are you convinced they can go toe-to-toe with anybody?
Because I saw them go toe-to-toe with a team that dismantled the United States men's national team in Germany. What I'm trying to tell you is... Fine, fair. I understand what you guys are saying, 100%. But why is it that they play up to the level of a German team that humiliated the U.S. men's national team in Hartford, and they can't play up to the level of one of the weakest Brazil teams that we've seen in our lifetime?
Listen. If that friendly is an indicator of how Mexico is going to play in the Copa America, more power to it. I hope you're right, Herc.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I said Brazil. I didn't say Copa America, excuse me.
But
I said the style of play of Brazil.
Hanging on to that Mexico performance against Germany from last fall.
Fair. I'm not hanging on to it. I'm just saying the style of play is something that for Mexico, they've historically played well against that style.